Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer. I make YouTube videos about how to heal after narcissistic abuse. I share my healing journey with you. In today's video, I'll be sharing the method I use to process my emotions. When I began my healing journey, I wanted to know what it means to process your emotions. I watched a lot of videos about this. They all kept saying, sit with your emotions, sit with your emotions, stay with your emotions, don't bypass them. Growing up in my house, if I ever cried, I would get into trouble. So I stopped crying altogether. Yes, I did not shed a tear. Even if I did, it was for such brief moments that I might as well not have cried at all. I spent a lot of my time in therapy when I grew up, where the psychologist could not induce tears. I could not cry, and this affected me. It made me look, sound, and feel really odd. I came across as someone who's really weird. That's not to say that up until this point in my life, everything had not fallen apart. I was still somehow holding things together. Finally, that day came when my whole life came crashing down like a deck of cards. This is when I started crying. This was in the year 2019. Now I can cry on demand. I just have to think about the loss of my friends, family, education, career, and my marriage. I lost all of it. So I find myself here in this point, and I wanted to find out what sitting with your emotions meant. I sat with a lot of my emotions. I would sit with the sadness, but this is all I felt. There was no real processing that was happening. I was not able to walk into the deeper side of this emotion. Nothing was happening, even though I was coming in touch with a lot of my own sadness. I would be sitting with my sadness, and then nothing would happen. I would feel sad, that's it. And I knew that I was not processing it right. So now, in addition to just sitting with my sadness, I added another step to it. I started communicating with my sadness and what this sadness was feeling. I started asking questions to this sadness as though it was another person. I accessed a painful memory of mine where my mother had just returned from work. And she started yelling at me as soon as she entered the house. And she did this every evening. She would go on to saying how hopeless and retarded I was and how much it pissed her off to see me every evening. I would go into a major panic attack every evening. And then, after yelling at me and entering the house, she would ask me about my day. And when I would tell her about my day, she would give me evidence for how incapable I am. This happened every evening, almost every evening throughout my childhood. So this emotion and these memories kept lingering and kept coming back to me and haunting me. So I decided to process them, and so I sat down with this deep sadness and brokenness. And I put some emotional music on, all right, so that I could really come in touch with this part of me. I closed my eyes and I asked that part of me to come up, which was battered by this painful experience. This is how I processed this particular painful memory. I went to the doorway of my old childhood home. I saw that little Jennifer who was standing there. She was in deep emotional pain. I felt many things in her: pain, hopelessness, devastation, and despair. She was being shredded into pieces every single evening when her mother came home from work. She would open the door to let her mother in after work and have her world shattered in return. This is all that little Jennifer confirmed when I stood in front of her. What she conveyed to me was not in words. I could just simply feel all of it. She didn't say a word. What I understood was through all the tears she was shedding and the pain she was in. She did forward her hand, so I used one hand of mine to hold the other hand, as though I was holding little Jennifer's hand. Little Jennifer's grasp was so tight. She was squeezing my hand with the pain she was feeling. This grasp from the other hand, which was little Jennifer's hand, was extremely painful. I could feel her pain and the abandonment she felt as a little girl. She never wanted to let go throughout the processing. She conveyed her feelings of not feeling safe in that house. I stood there with her. She was welling up at this point. She was not exactly crying. Then I started to speak with her. I told her, this is extremely sad that this happens to her every evening. Even before speaking to her, when I walked through the doorway and I just received her, up until the point I started speaking, that part of the experience was 20 minutes long. Me standing in front of her and her holding my hand and me feeling all of the pain, hopelessness and devastation and despair went on for 20 minutes. It was only after 20 minutes I started speaking with her, because it took me that long to feel the depths of those emotions. I told her that this is extremely sad that this happens to her every evening when her mother comes back from work. I expressed how this is unfair for a little girl to go through. When I spoke to her, her tears started flowing. There was weeping at this point. We both were mourning her childhood and her innocence. We both were crying at the loss of her happiness. We both wept together for the sadness that shadowed her entire childhood. Through the tears, we felt the loss of her entire childhood. And this crying and weeping went on for another 20 minutes. Then I kept saying that we both, because I stand with little Jennifer and I speak with her about her pain. After some crying, I spoke to her again. She gave me more depth into the pain. It was an ocean of despair this little Jennifer was feeling. It engulfed her to the point that she was drowning in it. She could not move or open her eyes. She was just held captive by these evenings where she was being destroyed by her mother. Then I spoke to her again. I told her that she is not alone. When I said this, she cried even more. She cried. Then I told her about how this pain is valid. To this, she cried even more. The only thing she asked me was if I was leaving. To which I told her that I'm always here. I told her I'm here for you and I'm going to feel all of your pain with you. She cried even more when I said this. There were a lot of tears. I told her that I will be coming to visit her in this doorway ever so often, and that we will cry our hearts out together whenever I come. She said, I feel alone. I responded, "You will never be alone again." Although the tears stopped at this point, she was still standing helplessly in that doorway, the doorway of doom, it looked like. I asked her how she was feeling. She said she was glad that I was holding her hand. I asked her how she was feeling again. After all this crying and all this processing, and after all this feeling, she stood there. She pointed to a tornado. She said, "That's the pain I feel, and I still feel it. It's so powerful and I don't know if it will ever stop. I feel so sad over here. I'm abandoned and I'm helpless." We both cried. I told her, "I see the tornado, and I'm here for you." I pointed to the same tornado of pain, and I told her, "I'm here with you. We are going to feel this pain together. I'm always here with you. Whenever you need me, just call me. I'm always here holding your hand in your pain." I asked her, "Is that okay?" She nodded and she said, "Okay." Now, this whole process took me 45 minutes, and I cried a lot during this whole time. Now that I have explained how I process my emotions, I would like to explain this processing work to you a little bit better. Please notice the language I use here. I never say words like, "it will get better." I never say things like, "it will be fine one day." This is because for this painful part of me, this information is irrelevant. If I mention such things to this painful side of me, I will lose touch with that part of me. I need to stay connected to this pain and feel the depths that this emotion is presenting me with. I need to dive deep into this. So there is never a mention of how things are going to be fine one day, because it will defeat the purpose of this work. Then after this, notice how I created a separation between this little painful part of me and myself. I treated it as two separate parts to be able to do this work. This is so that I can notice the experience as a grown-up. This is so that I can offer support to that part of me, instead of walking into this emotion as a singular person and being engulfed by the whole set of emotions as one person. When this little Jennifer presents me with difficulty upon difficulty, grief upon grief, I stand with her in it. She makes contact with me by holding my hand really tight. You will experience this when you do this work. This part of you will express the pain it feels through your body. Let the expression come through. In whatever shape or form this expression comes through your body, let it come through. For me, it was holding my hand, my own hand, as though I was holding little Jennifer's hand. Don't discount it as, "oh, this is so odd and this is so weird." So this is because you need to allow your emotion to be expressed through your body, because that is where your emotion is sitting. So anyway, as I was saying, I stand with her. I stand with little Jennifer and I mirror every emotion she's feeling. I give her what she did not receive as a little girl. She had no one as a little girl to hold her hand through a painful experience. Someone to validate her pain and acknowledge how tough she is having it in her own home, where she's supposed to be loved and protected. This act of weeping along with her and validating her emotions by using words to speak to her is really powerful. This is what enables the emotion processing to happen. When you sit with your sad emotions and you feel sad, you're processing, as opposed to you just sitting with your sad emotions. When you use your imagination, it'll show you and it'll give you a clear picture of what is going on inside of you. You see how I used my imagination to draw a difference between the grown-up Jennifer and the little Jennifer in that particular doorway. And she showed me a tornado of pain. Your imagination will start working on its own. It'll show you where the pain is and what it looks like. And it'll give you a very good idea. And you will be able to feel it inside your body when you do this emotion processing work. The last thing I would like to highlight about this whole experience is, look at how I'm not offering her any solution. I'm with her in her emotions and her pain. I partner her in the pain she feels. This step is so important so as to not make this part of you feel like it should feel any other way than it is feeling, what it is feeling in that moment. Do not offer it things to feel grateful for. Do not paint a picture of how a bright day will, is waiting around the corner. The only thing the little Jennifer needs is company, and someone she can share her pain with, someone she can cry with, someone who feels what she feels and receives her in her despair. When you do this exercise, you'll get an idea of how this part of you feels. You will see this part of you is kind of stuck and imprisoned by what it has had to experience in the past. This part of you feels hopeless. So if you talk about, bright sunny days to this part of you which is feeling stuck and imprisoned, it's not going to help this part of you heal. So why should you not shine a light, talk about bright, sunny, happy days when you talk to this part of you at this time? Why should you not do this? Let me give you a scenario. You imagine a person, a friend of yours, has broken their legs and they're bedridden and they cannot walk. And it's going to be a while before they walk. You go to visit them in the hospital and you start talking to them about, the things that they can finally do when they start walking again. And I'm sure you think this sounds ridiculous and you would never do this. But, in the name of positive intentions, in the name of motivating people to heal, there are many people who do say such things. It may not be exactly this, but something similar to this. Like, oh, there's going to come a day when you're going to be walking again. It's all going to be fine. When you meet someone who's just broken their legs and they are bedridden, even though you're being positive and you have good intentions, the information you are relaying to them is irrelevant and it's highly insensitive because they are in pain. They need to heal, and they can only do this with time by going through everything a person has to go through when they break their leg. So positive sunshine talks at this time is not going to motivate them to heal or feel better about their situation. You are not giving them hope exactly. Right now, in the present moment, all they can think of is the pain that they're in and the ordeal that they're going through because of having broken their legs. There are, so many dimensions to this experience of having broken their legs and how painful it can be. They are not thinking about the things that they can do when they finally start walking again. So instead of this scenario, now imagine this, the second scenario. You visit the same person. Now instead of offering solutions and bright, sunny, happy days, you hold their hand instead. And you look at them sincerely and you tell them, you know what? in this time of your painful time of your life, I'm here for you. You offer them your support and your understanding instead. When they see that you can feel their pain they're experiencing, they will feel like they have company, they have someone who understands them, someone that they can share their pain with. This companionship in pain and sharing emotions about it will make their experience that much more bearable in that moment because they feel accompanied by you. And when you do this, you never offer them solutions. You just hold their hand and you tell them, I'm here with you in your pain. I can see you're going through so much pain. This is really hard and I'm here for you. They can feel you next to them in this painful experience of having broken their leg. This is how you help them process their emotions. And this is how you even help your own self process your own emotions. I hope the scenarios I presented you with has given you a good idea about what I'm trying to convey. So you keep doing this exercise repeatedly and you create a relationship with all those parts inside of you that feel abandoned and that feel hurt. With time, you will notice a difference in the way you feel throughout the day and in the way you relate to yourself. Because you're integrating. You're taking all those hurt and, dismembered parts of your body. Whatever the narcissist has done to you, you're taking all those parts of you and you're sharing the emotion of that painful part of you. And you're crying along with it. That is a powerful experience. You'll be healing and it will be good. So during this whole experience, I use music as I'm someone who, I live in my head. I don't live in my heart. I don't feel as much as I should. I'm still very much disconnected from my emotions, even though I've been on my healing journey for a while. I need music to connect with my emotions. I will leave the music track I used for the above experience in the description box below. Okay? Please let me know in the comments if you processed your emotions and what your experience was like. And also let me know if this video has helped you in any way at all. Thank you so much for listening to me. I share with you my healing journey so that you get an insight into what it's like for another person who's just like you, who has been through experiences just like you with a narcissist and is now trying to heal. I wish you the best on your healing journey. See you next time.